What do you do when someone with dementia keeps repeating themselves? This can be a very frustrating part of the dementia process for many caregivers, and I'd like to offer you 5 quick tips today on how to deal with this in a way that might help you to keep your sanity. Hi, I'm Julie, physical therapist and founder of Help the Caregiver. If you're not yet a member of my free Facebook group for caregivers, please join us today. We'd love to have you. There's a link in the description below. Make sure to stay to the end where I go over a bonus tip related to what not to do when someone with dementia keeps repeating themselves, because these are the things that tend to make it worse and more frustrating for you. Tip number 1 on what to do when someone with dementia keeps repeating themselves is to keep repeating yourself. I know this may sound like a funny suggestion, but honestly, if you can keep in mind that the person with dementia is not doing this on purpose, they don't know that they are repeating themselves, they don't mean to be frustrating, and there's not anything that you're going to be able to do to get them to never display this behavior again, it can make it a lot easier. When I have patients with advanced dementia, sometimes we do have the same conversation over and over and over. And sometimes it comes down to your response to it. You can make a game out of giving different responses each time they ask, either varying the answers to be completely different answers, or just varying how much information you give when you answer their question. They keep asking you the same question and you keep giving the same answer. And you just decide to do that until you get tired of doing it. Tip number 2 when it comes to what to do when someone with dementia keeps repeating themselves is to stop answering their question. If this person has such an advanced stage of dementia that their turnaround time on a conversation is less than a few minutes, it is helpful to understand and remember that they are not going to remember the answer you give, no matter what answer you give. So you can get really frustrated because you're thinking, I just told you this, why don't you remember it? But you could also equally remind yourself, they're not going to remember the answer, so in some ways there's not really a point in answering this question. And I've had this come up with a lot of patients before where they ask me a question and I give them a really thorough answer, and then within 2 minutes they ask me the exact same question again. And maybe that time I might shorten my answer significantly because I realized that the big long explanation was pointless. When they ask me the same question over and over and over, I do get to a point where I just simply say, you know what? I don't know. Even though I obviously do know because I've just answered that question a bunch of times. But again, it's understanding the limitations of that person's memory and respecting those limitations and not taking it personally. Tip number 3 on what to do when someone with dementia keeps repeating themselves is to try to get them on a different topic. If they have one particular thing that they're just asking you over and over again, the reason is usually that their mind has become very fixated on that topic, and they are trying to remember to ask you something, or they're trying to engage you in a certain topic. But their short-term memory can't keep up with the fact that you have already had this conversation. The best thing that you can do is to try to get them off of it. It's almost like a skip track on an old record. If you can move that needle slightly to a different place on the record, you can get the record to stop skipping and repeating itself. Have I totally lost you on that analogy? But the human brain actually works very similarly to that. And if you can just kind of move the track a little bit so that they're on a different topic, you can get them out of that repeated conversation. So they may have asked you 100 times, how was your trip last week? And you're really tired of answering how the trip went. What I would advise you to do is to give the shortest answer possible and then offer a different topic to talk about instead. You know what, Mom? The trip was great. Did I tell you that so-and-so is getting ready to graduate from school next week? We're so proud of her. and see if you can move the topic on to this person's grandchild or great-grandchild or anything other than what it is that they keep repeating to you. Tip number 4, when it comes to what to do when someone with dementia keeps repeating themselves, is to distract them with another activity. Sometimes you can't get a person off the topic just by talking to them, but you can get them out of this repeated behavior pattern by changing the environment or changing something that they are physically engaging in. And I have no idea what that might be for you and your loved one in particular, but engaging them in something that they like to do is very often going to be your win. So maybe your loved one really likes to work puzzles and they just won't stop asking you about how your day was at work. You might get to the point where you just say, you know what, Mom, I don't really want to talk about my day at work. It was really boring, but I'd love to work a puzzle with you. Why don't we pick out a puzzle to do together? And engage them in that sort of an activity. Some people really like cooking, or they like helping to fold laundry, or maybe they can help you sort through socks that need to be matched, or sort through mail, or maybe they like to do crossword puzzles or word searches or Sudoku or anything really that they enjoy doing. See if you can either do it together or set them up to do it while you start on something else. Tip number 5, when it comes to what to do when someone with dementia won't stop repeating themselves, is to temporarily excuse yourself from the room. This can backfire and start them over again on a loop. And when it comes to a person with dementia, you have to hold your solutions loosely. You're kind of playing detective on what does and doesn't work. What works one day doesn't work at all the next day, and vice versa. So when it comes to a loved one with dementia, it's very helpful to have a lot of different tricks up your sleeve that you can try in the moment to see what will work. This is the same thing that you would do if you had a toddler. And I very respectfully compare patients with dementia to toddlers a lot, because their mind is in a very similar place and has very similar capabilities. And it can just help the person that I'm speaking to process the information or to understand the information better if I encourage them to think of their loved one as having more of the mind capabilities of a toddler. So if you are a parent, then you know that you can have something that'll work with your toddler one day and it won't even remotely work the next day. And sometimes something that has never worked with them before will suddenly work on a random Saturday for no reason. So it's helpful to have a lot of options and just keep trying and see which one works. I say all of that because if you leave a room and come back into it, it can actually be a catalyst for getting someone to repeat themselves. It's like the whole situation has completely started over for them. But sometimes it's enough of a distraction to get their mind to reset and get off of the topic. If you have tried everything else and you can't get them to stop asking the same question and stop repeating themselves, sometimes what you can do is set them up with an activity or a TV program or something to keep them busy and excuse yourself to another room. Hey, Mom, I see that one of your favorite shows is coming on TV. Let me get that pulled up for you so you can watch it, and I'm going to go start on dinner. And you set them up with something that will keep their mind engaged, and then you go somewhere else. And then a few minutes later, you can come back in, and sometimes that will have reset the situation, and they're no longer stuck on this one conversation topic. Before we wrap up this topic completely, I want to make sure and give you a few things to keep in mind that you do not want to do when you are trying to figure out how to get someone with dementia to stop repeating themselves. These are things that I see happen all the time when I'm helping the caregivers of my patients. And it's really important to me to help you to understand the things that are and are not helpful when it comes to handling a patient or a loved one with dementia. They all generally fall under the category of frustration. And I want to say first that I really understand how frustrating and overwhelming and exhausting it can be to be the primary caregiver for someone with dementia. I know this is 24/7 for you, and I know that a lot of times you might be doing this by yourself with little to no help from any other family or friends. And I know that you can start to feel like you are going crazy when you are constantly with someone who does not have the ability to really maintain their own mental faculties. And I want to say all of that up front to make sure that you understand that I am not trying to judge you. So getting mad at the person for repeating themselves serves no other purpose but to blow off your own steam. When you find yourself getting really frustrated, please try not to yell at them, try not to belittle them, try not to argue with them, try not to quiz them or try to force them to remember that you just had this conversation. Please don't say things to them like, "Why can't you ever remember what we just talked about?" Or, "Do you seriously not remember that I just answered that question for you?" Or, "I just answered that question, Mom. What did I say? What did I say I did for work today?" I have seen all of these things and more and worse in my work in home health, and it's really hard because I know how frustrating it is, but it's also really heartbreaking because that person truly does not know what's going on. They are not they are not lying to you about what they do and don't remember, and they are not doing it on purpose. And when you are very frustrated and you are overwhelmed, ideas can start to pop into your head like they're just making this up or they're doing this on purpose to frustrate me. This is just a disease process, and it's a really hard one. Their brain is not capable of remembering what they just heard. It is a process that has deteriorated in their mind. They are not doing it on purpose. And getting frustrated with them will only serve to make you more frustrated, but it won't fix the situation. I hope this video has been really helpful to you. Please let me know in the comments which of these tips was the most helpful, if you have any other tips that you've tried that have worked really well for you, and let me know what you would like to see me cover in future videos. I know dementia can be a really complex and frustrating topic, and I want to make sure and make the videos that are going to be the most helpful for you. Please subscribe to my channel so that you don't miss a thing. Next week's video is going to be about how to keep yourself organized when it comes to all of your parents' doctors and appointments, so you don't want to miss that one. And in the meantime, please check out these other really helpful videos. I'm Julie with Help the Caregiver, and I'll see you next week.